This week's parsha, Vayera, introduces Yitzchak Avinu. We have the story of his birth, and of course we have the story of the Akedah, Avram offering him as a sacrifice, which is a story we're all familiar with. I'd like to point out an aspect of the Akedah that we don't often think about. Because we often think about the Akedah from the perspective of Avram, the sacrifice, the willingness to give up his beloved son. But we don't reflect on how it was a transformational experience for Yitzchak. I'd like to dwell on that a little bit tonight, and I'd like to bring it out by reflecting on the Haftarah this week. Now, the Haftarah always echoes the Parsha. And we have a story which at first glance is very, very much a reflection of the events of our Parsha. And then the Haftarah takes a turn. And we have to see how that twist in the plot also relates to our Parsha. The Haftarah tells stories of the prophet Elisha. Elisha was the main disciple of Eliyahu HaNavi, and he was a miracle worker in his own way. So the Haftarah tells us, if you're following the Chumash, it's on page 1134, that Elisha traveled to a city named Shunem. And there was a very, very prominent woman in Shunem who would often host Elisha. When he would pass through, she would be his hostess. So one day, she tells her husband, you know, the Ish Elokim, the man of God, often passes through. Why don't we make a special accommodation for him? Let us make a special room with a bed and a table and a chair and a lamp. And this way, when he passes through, he'll have a comfortable place to stay. And they do it. So Elisha is naturally very appreciative, and he asks his disciple, Gehazi, to go and call the woman over. And the woman comes, and Elisha says to her, says, you know, you really went all out for us. You made this special room and furnished it, set it up. What can I do for you? How can I repay your kindness? Perhaps, do you have any matters that have to be taken up with the king? I can speak on your behalf. And she says, no, I'm a regular person. I live among the people. I have no involvements, no entanglements with the royal household. But Gehazi points out that there is something that Elisha can do, because she is childless and her husband is very old, and perhaps he can do something about that. So Elisha makes a promise, and he says that next year when I return, you will have a child. And the woman says, why do you deceive me? No, it's impossible. But Elisha stands firm, and sure enough, by the time a year passes, she has a baby. It's interesting, I'll just mention that this baby became a very important person. The Zohar HaKadosh says that this baby became Chavakuk HaNavi. Chavakuk HaNavi. In any case, the child got a little bit older, and one day he went out to join his father in the field with the harvesters, and the child took ill, and the child died. The child died in his mother's arms. So the mother put him in the bed that was in the room they had made for Elisha, and she went to Elisha, and she informed Elisha of the child's passing. And Elisha was mystified by the fact that he was unaware of this. Normally a Navi, a prophet, he knows what's going on. But apparently this was concealed from him. So he sent Gehazi with his staff, with his cane, and gave him instructions how to revive the child. It didn't work. And finally Elisha came, and Elisha performed a miracle and brought the child back to life. And that's where the Haftarah ends. So we have this miraculous birth, and we have the death of the child, and Elisha performs the second miracle and brings the child back to life. Now, there are parallels between this story and the story of our parsha. Our parsha also talks about a miraculous birth, right? The birth of Yitzchak. By this time, Avram was 100 years old. Sarah was 90 years old. So naturally they could not have a child. So there's a miraculous birth. But there's another interesting parallel. As if we think about this woman, the Shunamis, what was her outstanding quality? How she extended herself to provide accommodations for Elisha. And of course, in Parshas Vayera, what was the outstanding quality of Avram and Sarah? As well, their Hachnasas Orchim. It almost seems as if Hachnasas Orchim is the merit for which you're blessed with children. So Avram and Sarah practiced it, they were given Yitzchak, and the Isha Shunamis and her husband practiced it, they were given this child. But then there's a twist in the plot, which is a little strange, which is the death of the child, and Elisha miraculously bringing the child back to life. Now, how does that relate to our parsha? Until we realize that in our parsha there also is something very similar to that. Not that Yitzchak dies, but he almost dies. That's the Akedah. That he is on the verge of being killed, and he is saved at the last minute by God's intervention. So it seems that's the parallel, that somehow the child who is born miraculously doesn't live happily ever after. There is a moment either of actual death or near death, and the child is spared by divine intervention. So, taking it a step further, let me share with you an amazing thing. The Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, famous medrash, says that Yitzchak, in fact, did die at the Akedah. The Yitzchak actually died. That when Avram was about to put the knife to his neck, his soul departed. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Al tishlach yadcha al anar v'al tasleim uma, don't touch the child, Yitzchak's soul was miraculously restored. Therefore, according to Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, the parallel is exact. That just like in the story of Elisha, the long-awaited child, the miraculously born child, did die and come back to life, that in fact was the case by Yitzchak too, according to Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. Yitzchak actually died on Har Moriah, and he came back to life. I'll just mention, as an aside, a very, very interesting thing. The Zohar HaKadosh, in two places, quotes this tradition, that Yitzchak in fact did die at Har Moriah, that his soul departed out of fright, out of fear. And his soul was restored, and the Zohar, in each of the places, says a different consequence of this restoration. In one place, the Zohar says like this. The Zohar says that Yitzchak, the soul which departed, was the soul of Olam Hazeh, the soul of this world. And the soul that was restored was the soul of Olam Haba, the soul of the next world. Now, what does that mean? So let me explain this. Now, the Zohar says in another place that we find that there were certain figures that were spoken to by God, and their names were called twice. Like by Avram, it says Avram. By Moshe. We find the names were called twice. So what's the significance of that? That the names were called twice? So the Zohar says that the first name is a reference to the soul of this world, and the second is a reference to the soul of the next world. Now, what does that mean? It was like this. The Mukubalim tell us that the soul has components. It's actually, according to the Kabbalah, 5 components. The lowest is Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. 5 components to the soul. But not all of the components reside within the body. Only the lower end of the neshama is in the body, and the higher elements of the neshama extend beyond the body, heavenward. Now the interesting thing is that it's brought down in Sifrei Kabbalah, but also in less obscure works, that the shoe is a mashal, is an illustration for the relationship of the body to the soul. Just like the foot is contained within the shoe, so the soul is contained within the body. So the shoe symbolizes the body, and the foot inside the shoe symbolizes the soul. But when you think about this mashal, it's very appropriate, because it's only the bottom end of your leg which goes into the shoe. The leg rises above the shoe. And that's a very, very apt mashal for the neshama. It's only the lower end of the neshama which is contained within the guf. But there's a lot of the neshama which is outside of the guf. So just like they say about icebergs, that only a small bit is above the surface and most of it's underwater, so conversely, when it comes to the neshama, only a small bit of it is contained within the guf. A lot of it, maybe even most of it, really is outside of the body and extends heavenward. So therefore, when we talk about the neshama, there are 2 parts of the neshama. There's the part of the neshama which is the neshama of this world, the part of the neshama which is contained in the body, and there's the neshama of the next world, which is that spiritual extension which never is contained within the body. And that is the part which experiences the bliss of the world to come. So Avram had 2 parts. Moshe had 2 parts. The Zohar makes a point, a very interesting point. If you look at the place where Avram is addressed twice, there is a psik, there is a punctuation mark between the 2 names, Avram. It's in this week's parsha. And by Moshe Rabbeinu, you don't have any division. The notes are such that there is no interruption, no comma, no pause between Moshe and Moshe. And the Zohar says, because in the case of Avram, there was a split, there was a barrier, there was a division between the lower Avram and the higher Avram. In the case of Moshe, there was no split between the lower Moshe and the higher Moshe. Rav Chaim Volozhin talks about this in his commentary to the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai. The commentary is called Ruach Chai. At length he discusses the Zohar. But the Zohar says that Yitzchak Avinu, his upper soul went into his body. It was after the Akedah, the lower part of the soul disappeared, and it was replaced by the higher part of the soul. So Yitzchak, in some sense, transcended even Moshe Rabbeinu, that his body contained the part of the neshama which really is the higher part, and the lower part had disappeared. It wasn't that his soul departed and that same soul came back. The lower soul disappeared, and the higher soul filled his body.
Doesn't the lower soul have within it the life force itself?
I'm just saying what it says. Just saying what it says. Now it means that Yitzchak Avinu was on a level of sanctity which was unprecedented and never replicated. In other words, the neshama that animated, that was contained within his body, was really the higher neshama, which is really the neshama of the world to come. That's what the Zohar says. It's an amazing, amazing thing. It's interesting to know that the Netziv doesn't refer to this Zohar, but he makes an interesting point. It says that when Rivka, this is in next week's parsha, was brought to Eretz Yisrael, so it says that as soon as she saw Yitzchak, it says she fell off the camel and she covered her face. And then the Netziv says in his commentary that she was overwhelmed with awe on the sight of Yitzchak. It was just a pachad. It was just a fright. And the Netziv says, and this goes a long way toward explaining their very interesting relationship. Because we know that in last week's parsha and this week's parsha, we know that Abraham and Sarah can even disagree. Let's put it that way. I don't want to say they fought, but they could disagree. They could discuss, as you would expect in a marriage. And Rivka, when she and Yitzchak saw things differently, we don't find Rivka going over to Yitzchak and thrashing through the issues. We find Rivka working around in a roundabout way to have things work out as she would want them. But she never went to Yitzchak and said, listen, you're under a misconception that Esav is the tzaddik and is more deserving of the brachas. Really, I know the truth that Yaakov is more deserving. No, we don't find that. We find that Rivka schemed that Yaakov should come in disguise and steal the blessings. I mean, if Rivka saw things one way and Yitzchak saw things another way, why didn't Rivka just go and they could discuss it? So the Netziv says they didn't have that kind of relationship. Yitzchak was a malach. He was a malach. She couldn't speak to him. And if you wonder what made him a malach, well, that's what the Zohar says. The Zohar says that the soul that Yitzchak had after the Akedah was a different soul than the soul he had before the Akedah. That's one thing the Zohar says. The Zohar in a different place says a very, very interesting thing. It says that Yitzchak's original soul, and again, I'm just repeating the words, was Misitra de Nukva, was from the female side. And the new soul that entered was Misitra de Dachura, was from the male side. That's what the Zohar says, whatever this means. That his original soul was from the female side, and his new soul was from the male side. Now this Zohar is quoted in many, many Svarim. And the many Svarim wish to say that Yitzchak could not have had children until after the Akedah. Because since his soul was from the female side, he could not father a child with a woman. Because his soul was also a female soul. So two female souls can't generate a child. It was only after the Akedah that his original soul was replaced by a male soul from the Dachura, then he could have a child. Which is an amazing, amazing irony when you think about it. Because we read the story of the Akedah, what do we think? We think, boy, it almost happened that Klal Yisrael came to its end. Because Yitzchak is meant to be the successor to Avram. He would have children who would perpetuate Avram's lineage, and Yitzchak was almost put to death. So Baruch Hashem, in the last minute he was spared. But really it's the exact opposite. If the Akedah would not have happened, that would have been the end. Because Yitzchak could never have a child. Because his soul, his original soul, was from the Sitra Nukva, was from the female side. It was only a consequence of the Akedah, losing his original soul and gaining his second soul, that he could have a child. So really the Akedah was that which allowed for the line of Avram to continue. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And I saw in one sefer, reads this into a medrash that Rashi quotes. In the end of our parsha, it says that after the story of the Akedah, Avram got a message that his brother Nachar had children, and one of those children was Besuel, and Besuel in turn had a daughter, Rivka, and that of course was the Bazug, that was the intended partner for Yitzchak. Now it says, that little section where Avram got the news, it says, Vayihi acharei hadvarim ha'ela. It was after the story of the Akedah. Acharei hadvarim ha'ela. So that phrase implies there was some connection. Somehow this bit of news is related to the story of the Akedah. So Rashi quotes the Medrash, says like this, that when he came back from the Har Moriah on the way back, he was thinking, and he said, Oi, he said, that if I would have slaughtered Yitzchak, it would have been a disaster. I should have married him off before. I should have married him off before. To whom? To the daughters of Eshkol, Oner, Mamre, Avram's friends. This way, if he would have already been married and had children of his own, so if the Akedah would have taken place, it wouldn't have been the end of the line. So Avram began to regret.
That's the first time he thinks of that?
He was not that old, Yitzchak. He only was 39 years old. Right? In those days, that was young. So he began to regret. He said that, well, why didn't I marry him off? This way, no matter what would have happened to him, the line would have continued.
That means he wasn't aware of the Zohar.
So HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent this message to him and said that Rivka is his Bazug. Rivka, his partner, was just born now. So I saw in the Sefer, it says like this, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling Avram. He says, you're making a mistake. He says, you think you made a mistake by not marrying him off before. He says, to the contrary, he couldn't have gotten married before. Right? And the proof is, I'll prove it to you, that his intended Bazug was only born after the Akedah, which proves the point. In other words, if he was incapable of having children beforehand, what's the point of preparing for him a wife? It was only after the Akedah, at that point he could have children, so then his Bazug was born. Right, that's what the mystics say. But in any case, we see from here a very interesting thing, that to a certain extent, the Akedah was a transformational experience for Yitzchak, right? In the sense that he acquired the male neshama, which would enable him to have children, or in the sense that now the neshama he had was not the neshama of this world, it's the neshama of the next world. It was an experience which transformed him. Okay, that's all mystical. Let's think about this a little bit on a very, very simple level. We're simple people. Let's talk about it on a simple level. What impact could the Akedah have had on him? Now, she was an idea that is important to understand. If anyone was ever misnamed, we would think that it was Yitzchak. Right? The name Yitzchak implies laughter. Implies laughter. Because when Avraham Avinu was informed, Avram laughed. Right? When Sarah was informed, Sarah laughed. So the child's going to name Yitzchak. And we're not going to go into details. From the story, it's clear that their laughter was different. In other words, Avram's laughter was a laughter of joy. And Sarah's laughter was rooted in doubt. How is such a thing possible? I'm going to have a child. It's ridiculous. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not react negatively to Avram's laughter, but did react negatively to Sarah's laughter. Sarah denied it, of course. Right? She denied it. She said, Lo tzachakti ki yareya. She was scared. Vayomer lo ki tzachak. And he said, no, you did laugh. Who's he? So there's a shayla in the Medrash. Either it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu or Avram. But the point is that they both laughed. So therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that the name of this child should be called Yitzchak. By the way, it's interesting. The Yitzchak is the only one of the Avais whose original name was given by God. Whereas Avram, his original name Avram was given to him by his father. HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed the name to Avraham. Yaakov was given his original name by his mother. HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed his name to Yisrael. But Yitzchak, his original name was given to him by God. And that's why he's the only one of the us who does not undergo a name change. Because each of the of us has a name given by God. But Avram, it was his second name. For Yaakov, it was his second name. For Yitzchak is his original name, his birth name. There's no need for the name change. But in any case, that's the thing with Yitzchak. So Yitzchak implies laughter. So when you think of laughter, what do you think? Laughter is a good thing. It's good to laugh. Everyone should laugh, be happy, and be in a good spirit. So we think of laughter as a very, very pleasant, positive thing. Laughter is the best medicine. You know, a person is not well, tell him a joke, cheer him up, you should laugh. It's therapeutic. That's what we think of laughter. But the Mekubalim tell us that the nature of Yitzchak, what he stood for, was not a laughing matter. Avram was rooted in the side of Chesed. He perceived the Ribono Shel Olam's kindness. And consequently, he responded in two ways. One is that how did he relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He served HaKadosh Baruch Hu with ahava, with love. Avram is called Avraham Ohavi. God calls him Avram, my lover. Love is the natural response to Chesed. If you see yourself as the recipient of God's kindness, you relate to him in a loving way. And furthermore, Avram was the exemplar of Chesed. And it wasn't just because temperamentally he was about Chesed. Undoubtedly it's because he understood that if this is the essence of God, if God is the ultimate doer of Chesed, so the obligation to emulate God necessitates that I also perform Chesed, perform kindness. And all the stories of Avraham Avinu revolve around Chesed. The Chesed he did with his nephew Lot, the Chesed with the Malachim, praying for the people of stone. And of course, the test of Avram is, can he do something which is contrary to his nature? It was a nisayon, a test, always means we're testing if you can do something which is against your fundamental nature, which goes against the grain. So since the essence of Avram is chesed, can you take a knife and slaughter your child? That's the test. The test always is, can you go contrary? And when Avram demonstrated that he could, that's when the Malach said, Ato yadati, now I know, ki yirei Elokimata, that not only are you a person who loves God, but you're a person who fears God. Because you're able to do this thing which is so contrary to your very nature. That's Avram. Yitzchak Avinu, the Mekubalim tell us, was rooted in the midah of Gevura. Gevura is midas hadin. He saw Kadosh Baruch Hu as one who restrains himself. He holds back from the undeserving. That's what midas hadin is. What does midas hadin? Midas hadin is that you only get what you deserve. That means God holds back his bounty, he holds back his generosity, he holds back his kindness from the undeserving. And that's what Yitzchak Avinu saw. Yitzchak Avinu saw this idea of Gevura. Gevura means restraint. Chazal say, Zeu Gibor, who is considered a Gibor? Hakol Bereshis Yitzchak, a person who can restrain his natural desires. Gevura is restrained. And that's how Yitzchak perceived the Ribbono Shel Olam. Now, a person who sees the Midas Adin, who sees the restraint, who sees that God withholds his bounty from the undeserving, how does that person serve the Ribbono Shel Olam? He serves him in fear. And that, of course, is the Mid of Yitzchak, Pachad Yitzchak, that he relates to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the object of fear. Because if you see yourself as being judged and being affected by the Midas Adin, so the response to that is Yira. I once heard, many years ago, pardon?
It always troubled me because Pachad and Yira are different, right? Pachad is real fear. Like quaking fear.
This was real fear. Yitzchak's fear was real fear.
Not awe. It's like real fear.
Real, petrified fear.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I once heard, I don't know who said it, that we know that Avraham Avinu had disciples. He had the Nefesh Asher Asu B'Charan. He had converts. He had Talmidim that followed him. The Rambam writes there were not just a few. There were hundreds and thousands of them. He had a following. And all of a sudden, these people fall off the face of the earth. What happened to them? Where are all these disciples? Where did they go? So I once heard, I think it was from the Kotzker Rebbe, that the Kotzker Rebbe said that Yitzchak scared them away. There was Avraham Avinu, he taught a doctrine of chesed and kindness and love, and God loves you, and everyone wants to hear that. Beautiful, God loves me. Everyone buys into that. So Avraham Avinu could bring thousands and 10,000s to the fold. And Yitzchak began to preach a different picture. Yitzchak says, no, there's Midas Adin, there's judgment, there's restraint, God withholds. And no one wanted to hear that. So all the people just disappeared. But that's Yitzchak Avinu, it's pachad, it's fear. Just as an aside, I'll tell you an interesting thing, that in Parshas Toldos, so it says that when Yitzchak and Rivka prayed, so God listened to the prayer of Yitzchak. Why? Because there was something special about his tefillah. Because he was a tzaddik ben tzaddik. He was a tzaddik, the son of a tzaddik. So the question which is asked is, if anything to the contrary, right, the prayer of the tzaddik ben Rasha should be more powerful, because the tzaddik ben Rasha made something out of himself. Right? The tzaddik ben tzaddik just followed the path of least resistance. Why should that be more powerful? So Rav Dessler brings from the Alter from Kelm, says like this, he says, you're right. If you have a tzaddik who just follows in his father's ways, you're right, that's nothing special. The tzaddik ben Rasha is superior to the tzaddik ben tzaddik who merely follows his father's ways. But Yitzchak was not that way. Yitzchak embarked on a whole new derech, a whole new way of avodas Hashem. That Avram's derech was avodas Hashem me'ahava, and Yitzchak's derech was avodas Hashem me'yira. It was a new pathway, and that is very special. Why? So it says the Alter from Kelm. Because a tzaddik ben Rasha knows the necessity of having to start something new, start afresh. He knows that he can't rely on what he was taught by his parents. His parents were Rishoyim. He's seen no light. He has to work hard. He has to embark on something new. But for the tzaddik, it will be so easy just to follow in his father's footsteps. The tzaddik ben tzaddik, who makes something of himself, something original, something creative, something truly new, that is a hard thing to trigger. That takes a lot of motivation. Like, why bother? Why do I have to do something new? Why can't I just do it the way my father did it? So that Yitzchak Avinu should embark on a whole new derech of avodas Hashem, that is something which is extraordinary. And that's why his tefillah was more powerful than even Rivka's. So we get this picture of Yitzchak. Yitzchak has a whole new way of avodas Hashem, so the Mekubalim put it. So avodas Hashem of pachad, of fear, of Yira, recognizing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's restraint, Midas Hadin, holding back. What is he doing with the name of Yitzchak? Laughter. I mean, it seems that he was misnamed. So let's hear from Adam Chashuv. Said like this. If you think about it for a moment, you really see that it's true. What do we find funny? What makes us laugh? What makes a joke funny?
Surprise.
The element of surprise. It's incongruous. It doesn't make sense. It's unexpected. Right? That is what's funny. Every joke is constructed in such a way. Often a joke will repeat the same scheme 3 times, and the first time it happens the expected way, and the second time it happens the expected way, and the third time it happens in the unexpected way, and we find that funny. Why is that funny? It's the incongruity of it, the fact that it's unexpected. Because why do Avram and Sarah laugh when they are told that they're going to have a child? It's incongruous. It makes no sense. He's 100 years old. She's 90 years old. People that age don't have children. So they laugh. Okay, there's a subtle difference in the laughter. Avram's laugh is joyous surprise. Sarah's laughter is incredulous surprise. But the point is that that's what people laugh about. Something which is surprising, something which is unexpected. That's why once you've heard the joke, it isn't funny anymore. Right? Why? It's the same joke. Why don't you laugh the second time? It's not a surprise anymore. Now you expect it to unfold the way that it does. It's not funny anymore. It's just impossible to laugh once you know the joke. Unless the thing is so unexpected, so incredible, that even after you hear it, it seems incredible. And then you can laugh about it even a second and third time. For a person that perceives the Midas Hadin, existence is incredible. Life is incredible. It's totally incongruous. It makes no sense. Why should God give me the gift of life? You see, to the person who sees God as pure chesed, it makes sense. It makes sense. God wishes to bestow chesed, so He gives us life, He gives us health, He gives us sustenance, He gives us all the things He gives us. It's not incredible. It makes sense. It's reasonable. It's not laughable. But to the person who is perceptive and sees Midas Hadin, he sees that there's an aspect of the Ribono Shel Olam which wants to limit himself and restrain himself and only provide that which is deserved. Well, in that sense, really nothing is deserved. Nothing is an entitlement. We have no claim to life. We have no claim to existence. Everything is hysterically funny. The fact that I'm alive, that I am here, is just laughable. There's absolutely no reason in the world I should be here. And the truth is this. The truth is that the full appreciation of God's kindness is only against the background of Midas Hadin. Only when you understand that Ribono Shel Olam has good reason, and there is something which is part of His fundamental essence, which wants to exercise restraint and not give that which is undeserved, only against that background do we truly appreciate God's kindness. Because when God bestows kindness, what is He really doing? He's really going against something which is very, very fundamental to His nature, which is to exercise restraint and bestow kindness. Now there's the Gemara in Maseches Brachos, very, very interesting Gemara. The Gemara says, Minayin shakadosh baruch hu mispalel. How do we know that God Himself prays? The God Himself prays. So it says in the pasuk, "Va'aviosim al har kodshi." When Mashiach comes, I'll bring the people back to my holy mountain. V'simachtem b'veis tefilasi, and I will make them glad in the house of my prayer. So the Beis Hamikdash is called Beis Tefilasi, the house of my prayer, not my house of prayer, but the house of my prayer. That's how Chazal understand it. Beis Tefilasi, the house of my prayer. Tfilasam alay nemar. It doesn't say the house of their prayer. It says, I will make them happy in the house of my prayer. From here we see that God prays. So the Gemara asks, so what does God pray?
And to whom?
What does He pray? He prays to Himself. He says, He ratzon milafanai, may it be my will, sheyichbeshu rachamai eskasi, that my mercy should suppress my anger, v'yagoylu rachamai al midaisai, and my mercy should subdue my natural inclination, and that I should treat my children lifnim mishuras adin. I shouldn't take them to the line of the law. I shouldn't apply strict judgment. So what does this mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mispalel? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mispalel that I should suppress my anger with midas harachamim. It means that the din, the yearning for din, the yearning for justice, the yearning that things should be deserved and nothing more should be given, is something which is very, very strong and very basic to the Ribono Shel Olam. The Ribono Shel Olam has to pray in the same way that when we pray for things. What does it mean we pray for things? We pray for the things that we don't think are naturally going to come. There's a good chance they're not going to come, so we have to pray for them. We have to beg for them. So kaviyachel, if such thing could be said, Ribono Shel Olam has to beg Himself that His mercy should overpower the midas adin, because there is something very fundamental and basic that Ribono Shel Olam really has a satisfaction from a world which operates in accordance with principles of justice.
But the initial thrust of the Bria was out of
whatever the point, the initial motivation was. But as the Mekubalim tell us, right, even the Ribono Shel Olam's chesed, He wants that it should be deserved. And therefore He wants us to earn it. And therefore He only wants to give us that which we've earned. And therefore that would result in a world which is run under strict midas adin. And that is a tremendous nachas ruach. That's a tremendous source of satisfaction on God's part. He has to, kaviyachal, if such a thing could be said, pray to Himself that His midas harachamim overpower that. But that means that the more we perceive the midas adin, the more conscious, the more cognizant we are of the midas adin, the more we understand the chidush of God's kindness. Now, it's one thing that a person who's temperamentally kind is kind. But a person who is temperamentally strict should be kind. That's already a chiddush. That's something which is unexpected. And that's the laughter of Yitzchak. The laughter of Yitzchak is because it's not a contradiction to the midas adin. It's precisely because Yitzchak is so perceptive, so conscious of the midas adin, that everything that God does for us is laughable. It's like the punchline of a joke. It's totally incongruous. It makes no sense. It shouldn't be. But it is. And that's why Yitzchak is the most appropriate name. Right? The true appreciation of life is only on the part of the person who understands din. A person who understands God's yearning for justice, that things be just so, that everything we earned and deserved, he has the full appreciation of God's kindness to the extent that it's Yitzchak, it's laughter. It's totally incongruous. It just makes no sense, but it is. So life itself is a joke. He says that is the lesson of the Akedah on the simplest level. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a promise to Avraham that Ki Yitzchak yikar lecha zara. Yitzchak will be your successor. Yitzchak will carry on your heritage. One would have thought, well, if there's a divine promise, there's nothing more secure than that. If you can't count on God's promise, what can you count on? And sure enough, one day HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham, take that Yitzchak, slaughter him as a carbon. That means that you can't count on anything. Life, any gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you is not an entitlement. It's not yours. There's no requirement of due process before it can be taken. Hashem nosam, Hashem lokach. God gives and God can take. And that's His prerogative. And Yitzchak understands that more sharply than perhaps even Avraham understands that. Because he understands Midas Hadin. He understands that there is nothing which is an entitlement. Everything is a gift, and therefore everything can be taken away. It's his prerogative to withhold the gift. And therefore life becomes something which is truly laughable. It's unexpected. That's the story of the Shunamis as well. You know, when a person has a child the natural way, so a person understands, well, infant mortality is something which happens. No, there's no guarantee, there's no promise, there's no pledge. And it can happen that the family loses a child, but when you're given a child miraculously by God, by the promise of the Navi, you tend to think that's an entitlement. There's an expectation. There's no reason I should be worried this might be taken away from me. Why should I suspect that? If it came through the natural process, okay, so maybe for some reason God will take it away from me. But if it came as a result of a divine prophet, it was a miracle. There's a special promise from the prophet, from Elisha, from the Ribbon Shloim to give a child. It's safe. Well, what do I have to worry about? What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu impress upon the Shunamis? That it isn't that way. You can't take anything for granted. You have to appreciate everything you have. And even this child who was born miraculously as a result of the promise of the prophet can also be taken away. And another miracle was necessary to bring it back to life. And that really is the connection of the Haftarah to the Parsha. That's the connection of the story of the Akedah to the miraculous birth of Yitzchak. That despite the fact that there was a divine promise and a miracle birth, you can't take it for granted. You can't take it for granted. And according to the Zohar, Yitzchak actually died in Har Moriah. And it was only a miracle through which he was given back. So it just comes to mind that it's very appropriate that we are discussing this on Thanksgiving, albeit Canadian Thanksgiving. I don't know, is it the real thing, is it not the real thing? But Thanksgiving, Hakaras Hatov, gratitude, is one of those things that is very, very difficult for us to do. Because why do we tend to be ingrateful? Because we tend to rationalize that this is coming to me. I deserve this. There's an expectation. And consequently, why should I be thankful? Why should I be grateful? Why should I feel beholden? Right? If my children treat me as children should treat their parents, and my wife treats me as wives should treat their husbands, and I treat my wife as husbands should treat wives. So we tend to take that for granted. Because that's the way of the world. That's the way it's supposed to be. Right? I have to be grateful. It's unexpected. And the reality is that the life itself is unexpected. we can't take anything for granted. And every day we have to thank the Ribono Shel Olam for everything we have, including the fact that we exist, including the fact that we're alive. We can't take for granted just because we were alive yesterday, we're going to be alive today and be alive tomorrow. And that's what the Akedah teaches us. And that is a transformational experience. Because when a person begins to think that nothing is an entitlement and everything is a gift, the person's life is transformed. As instead of being a person who's perpetually dissatisfied and always complaining and nothing is good enough, and why don't I deserve better? Why don't I get what I deserve? In other words, the person who sees the world that way, as Yitzchak came to see the world, is a different person. It's a person who's filled with appreciation. Everything is a cause for laughter. Everything is a cause for joy. Because there is no expectation. There's nothing which is an entitlement. You know, it's interesting that we read, of course, the parsha of the Akedah on Rosh Hashanah. And I think that that's a very, very important thing on Rosh Hashanah. It says in the Svarim that when we daven on Rosh Hashanah, we hope for a good year. Right? One of the worst things that we can do, if we really want to shoot ourselves in the foot, talking about doing something that really messes you up, is to come on Rosh Hashanah to the Ribono Shel Olam with complaints about the last year. I don't suspect anybody here of doing that. But you think about it for a second. It's very easy to think, we come to the Ribono Shel Olam and say, last year was not so good, and we deserve better. And when we come with complaints like that, the Ribono Shel Olam has a tremendous retort, which is, you're complaining, what are you complaining about? What do I owe you? What do I owe you? Life itself is not an entitlement. Life itself is a gift. Health is a gift. Parnos is a gift. Everything is a gift. You're coming to me as if you're presenting a bill, like an IOU. You can't come like that. Says you want a gift, ask for a gift, but don't present a legal claim. And that's important for us to understand in Rosh Hashanah, that if we're going to pray as if we are making demands, it doesn't work. That's not what the Ribono Shel Olam wants. We have to understand the truth. And that's why the story of the Akedah is very, very poignant on Rosh Hashanah. Now, the story of the Akedah there would have been real expectations. They tell the story that a person came to a Rebbe and was very upset. And the Rebbe said, why are you upset? So they went to the doctor. The doctor said, I have 1 month to live. He was very upset. So the Rebbe says, really? The doctor promised you 1 month? I don't even have that. He says, you have a promise that you can live 1 month? It's a joke. That we think that we're meant to live forever. When the doctor informs us of the bad news, we have a month to live, all of a sudden we feel that our lives are being torn from us. And the truth is, a person who understands that everything is a gift, right, with no expectations, that person is filled with gratitude, is filled with appreciation. That's what the Akedah teaches us. And it's important to go through life like that. When we get used to things, get accustomed to things, then nothing's ever good enough. When we see it as a gift, not as an entitlement, then our lives are filled with appreciation, and our lives are filled with laughter. So it's an amazing thing. It's the perception of the midas hadin, the perception of this idea of restraint and control and everything Yitzchak stands for. Right? That is the key to living a life of joy and happiness and appreciation. More than the life of chesed. When we do chesed, we tend to think, okay, so we do chesed, now we're owed chesed, and it's coming to us. People should reciprocate the kindnesses we extend. And when they don't, we're hurt, we're offended. the perception of midas hadin, that everything has to be earned and deserved, creates surprise and joy and celebration. And that's what the midah of Yitzchak is all about. And the Akedah brought that point home to an unprecedented extent. That if there was anybody on this world for whom life would be an expectation, it would have been Yitzchak. As because Baruch made a promise, Yitzchak will be your descendant. So he certainly would have had the right to expect, to assume that he was meant to live. When he discovered that even his life was on the line, then it becomes truly a joke. It becomes truly something which is a surprise, and something for which we can be immensely grateful. We'll get some thoughts about the parsha, Be'ez Hashem, a little bit early, but you've been such a good audience that we're able to cover it in 56 minutes instead of 60. Yes.
A question. The description of Yitzchak's soul departing, you said that it was as a result of fear, pachad?
It could be, I don't know. We don't know what it was.
Zohar doesn't say why.
Doesn't say why.
The knife never touched his throat.
Never touched it.
Right. So, okay. Because I realized there's a connection between the pachad of the event, where his soul left, and his nature later in life. There's one with pachad. And tonight is you're outside of Rachel Amen. Of Rachel Amen, no?
Is Yud Aleph. So, see, Shabbos was Ches, and Sunday is Tes, Monday is Yud, right? Tonight is Rachel Amen is Yahrzeit. I shouldn't let that pass.